Apologize, I'm running. Okay, good morning. I'd like to thank you guys that are here. We have Kathy, Chino, Wes, Brian, Venus. So I hope everyone is ready to get back to work after that weather last week. So, all right. That's right. So we'll make up for last week's lost productivity. So we had some fantastic wins last week, and our KDNA results. It looks like there was seven of you guys that had met your goal in your KDNA results. So good job on your numbers. So let's just go through. It looks like Wes, you were at the top of the list for the last week with 120% of your goal. So, keep in mind the average numbers. If you're in the green, then statistically that's $140,000 annual income. If you're in the yellow, then those agents average about 64,000. So in Wes's case, if he's 126% of goal, then he's going to be well over the average annual income. So Wes, it looks like you did great on your metric number 4, 3,500 flyers or postcards that were put out. What was your call to action? What was your messaging on those?
5 buyers, 2 buyers on the back, 3 different families.
Great.
So
okay.
3 phone calls.
Fantastic. Okay, so 3, and those 3 out of 3,500 postcards that went out. So we just updated our KDNA tip sheets about a week ago. So make sure you reference the tip sheet number 4 on those I Have a Buyer flyers. Because the expectations, I've seen some of you put out maybe 100 a week or 200 a week. That doesn't cut it. And you've got to put out at least 2,000 or more a month. And it usually takes about 2,000 to 3,000 a month before you can count on 1 to 2 listings a month from that. But if you're doing it consistently, you should be able to count on a couple listings a month. And from what the results we've seen in the past, for every 5 contacts, so for example, Wes had 3 last week, but for every 5, it should result in a listing. And that's what's your averages been running?
Per 1,000 flyers,
right.
2 listings.
Okay.
So it goes over that 300% ROI.
Great. Okay, so that's in your sphere of influence. I mean, is that your GeoFarm or sphere of influence or both? Just GeoFarm. Okay, great. So Castle Hills and Heartland are the 2 areas that he's been consistently building his GeoFarm, and now that he's been doing it for what, about a year and a half now? Postcards a year now. So now he has that consistency built into place, and he'll gradually see increased results month after month. And now March is the month that we really want to pour on the marketing, because we're moving into the spring market. You don't want those people to get away from you. You want to make sure that your face is in front of them all the time, that they cannot, whenever they're thinking about real estate, that you're the first one that they think about. And so that takes a lot of touches, and that's where the just listed cards in your GeoFarm, the just sold cards, combined with the I Have a Buyer, then what that does is that brings the credibility. And Wes has earned that credibility with the people in that GeoFarm, because he's not only door knocking, he's not only doing open houses, he's not only sitting just listed, just sold cards, he's also sitting the I Have a Buyer. So it's a combination of all of those efforts that help. So great job, Wes. It looks like you also last week had a buyer rep agreement, and also took a listing, and also had 3 sales put under contract. Where did that listing come from, and those contracts come from?
The new buyer is an investor I picked up off my Facebook ad.
Okay.
So the 121 in the Josie development,
right.
Picked them up off of the Facebook ad, and so he wants to buy a couple homes a month.
Great.
So the new listing is.
So tell us about your Facebook ad. What's the call to action on that?
There's no call to action. It's just basically informative.
Okay.
This is what's going on in my area, and this is what you should know, because this affects your property values.
Great.
So this guy was like, well, what's happening here? It doesn't say on your map. So he called me, met with him at his house, and he owns like 30 7-Elevens.
Wow.
And he just.
Fantastic. So that Facebook ad, was that targeted to the zip code in your GeoFarm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Targeted to Castle Hills people.
Targeted to Castle Hills people in that zip code in that area. So that's very powerful. part of his message, this goes exactly to what I talk about as far as your sphere of influence and what is your message. You know, what is it that's showing that you know the market? Wes is on his Facebook ad, that's adding credibility, him giving market knowledge and showing market statistics and market information for his area. So that created an engagement, and that engagement led to listings. Right, right. Good job. And had a closing. Where did that closing come from last week?
That came from Reunion Title, off of, I have a postcard.
Okay.
Geofarm to Heartland.
Okay, Geofarm to Heartland, and it was, what was the call to action? It was, I have a buyer, or?
This was Heartland Expert.
Heartland Expert. Okay, so if you do one postcard that says you're an expert, then it's going to go into the trash can, and you'll probably never hear from them. If you do the second one, then they probably will they may turn it over. If you do a third one, and then they're going to look at it, the fourth and the fifth one is when you're earning that credibility. So Wes has been doing that now in Heartland for quite a while.
Nina and I went on a listing appointment together last week, and it was funny because they had my postcard and another agent's postcard, and I asked them about me. I said, "Why did you choose mine?" And they said they turned it over on the back, and it was all the value-added services that I put on a postcard compared to what this agent did was just her face and what she did last year. So it was the free professional photography, the free moving. Right. It was all those additional services that is already out there, so they knew who to call.
Right. Great job. So Wes also on his postcard, he conveyed his value proposition. So not only does he know his value proposition, but he's conveying it in his marketing material, which is the moving services and how those moving services are facilitated. Also the, what is the other thing that you mentioned? The staging or photography?
That was professional.
Right.
You know, like an iPhone, like most
right.
With John, you know.
Right.
The moving the boxes and the photography.
Right. So these are very, this is in Heartland, which is a much lower average sales price than Castle Hills. So these people are going to be very value conscious. And so actually them seeing the dollar amount and how much money that saves them and the convenience, then that's important. So knowing your audience and knowing how to create a call to action to that specific audience is real important. And this goes to in the KDNA tip sheets that we have enhanced, which I don't have the time to go through all of this, but I'm going to spend about 5 minutes and run through some of the highlights on this. And since you got, just for time's sake in the audience, speak up and let me know if some of these have helped you or haven't helped you, or how your experience is to some of these. So tip sheet number 1, I want to emphasize, when it comes to your training, mindset is one of the most important components to training in real estate. So how much time are you spending working on your mindset in your training? Number 2, I would say, is sales training. You know, do you really understand the sales process, and how much training do you have in actual sales training? Number 3 is market knowledge. So the actual market, what's going on in your geofarm, what's going on that's relative to your sphere of influence in their specific market. So
on that, last week MLS sent out the new schedule for all the MLS meetings.
Right.
So that's where you need to get your market knowledge, so that you go to the MLS meetings, because they talk about the local.
Right. So Kathy is talking about your local MLS meetings. So make sure that you're attending your local MLS meetings, and also MetroTex and Collin County Association of Realtors have great professional development classes as well. Right. Right.
Preview properties.
Great. So on the other things that are on the training on the tip sheet is our core training, which is sphere of influence training, the for sale by owner training, open house training, for sale by owner open house training, expired listing, time management, Waller Group listing presentation, Waller Group buyer presentation. Some of the things that we updated is on the KDNA training. So we actually put the link, so that way you can take more of the KDNA training, and also the link for realbusy.com, which is the training for conversion. So the conversion training, I would highly encourage that as well. We also added a key, so that way you guys are clear on the metrics for the KDNA. So moving on to metric number 2, script practice. These scripts, you know, they have been, the reason we use scripts because they've been tested and they work, but they don't work unless you know objection handlers. So there's always going to be objections, but there's only so many objections. So make sure that you know your objection handlers. KDNA number 3, number of hours contacting. This is one of the most important because this is where you really learn what your time is worth. And that's one of the things that we all, as professional salespeople, our time is our most valuable asset. So knowing what it's worth, and then are you focused on dollar income productive activities? So with KDNA metric number 3, it looks like Angela did a great job last week. So did Tammy and Barbara. It looks like Nana and Jill also all were doing a great job with their hours contacting, making contacts. So Wes, you didn't make any contacts. So
It's all working, postcards.
right. So his marketing. So this is a great great observation I want you guys to take, is that your number of hours contacting is going to be weighted against your marketing. Usually if you have a heavy marketing budget, Wes spends a lot of money on marketing, then usually you can spend less hours on making contacts. So there always needs to be a balance there, and you need to make sure that you're doing one or the other. But if you're not doing either, then your business will suffer as a result. Looks like KDNA number 5, Angela made 60 contacts last week. Great. Sarah, 30 contacts. Rupal, 35 contacts. Barbara, 21 contacts. Tammy, 32 contacts. Nana, 15 contacts. Jill, 50 contacts. Great job, Jill. Jill also is working 2 for sale by owners using the Waller Group for sale by owner open house program. So kudos to Jill. I'm sure those were some of those contacts. And she's also, I think, Rupal, as a result of the Waller Group for sale by owner open house program, took a pre-listing last week. So great job, Rupal. She's been working hard at that. So in fact, I think she has 2 candidates and 1 that is signed for a pre-listing. These are for sale by owners from our for sale by owner training. Okay, so let's move on down to metric number 10. I'm a little behind schedule, so I'm going to try to move through. As far as open houses, this is now the season for open houses. So now that we're in March, you should really be having open houses pretty much every week. That's a great way to generate more contacts, and it's a great way to generate more exposure in your geo farm. Do you guys have any feedback as far as open houses, open house successes or challenges?
Do it early in the week. Don't do it last minute.
Okay, so prepare for your open house and properly have it prepared so that way you have good attendance.
Neighbors, go out and put flyers, hand flyers, walk the neighborhood, invite your neighbors, telling them to find their neighbor for you.
I had an open house this last weekend on Point de View in Flower Mound, and that property it was very well attended, even though the weather was terrible. But yet we had Venus. How many people came through the open house, just roughly? 16, 17 groups. Yeah. Venus co-hosted that open house with us, and out of those, we actually had people that were interested in that particular property, weren't they? Yeah. So I know 2 that we spoke to were very interested in moving forward with that property. So if you have a hot property, and especially if it's priced under market, and that's where the Waller Group for sale by owner program is a perfect opportunity, as long as you make sure it's properly priced. So when you put that in the MLS, that open house, then it better be at a price that's compelling enough to where you can create almost like an auction on that Sunday. And I think we had, when you're at a $2 million price point like Point de View, it's really hard to create that auction type process. But especially on the price points between 300 up to about 450, you should be able to do that if that for sale by owner is properly priced. So follow the Waller Group for sale by owner program, and that will help you with that. Any other open house challenges, wins? What about other marketing pieces? Kathy, I know you do typically quite a bit of marketing. What's your call to action that's been successful for you on your in creating engagements for you?
I have a buyer. Just over and over again, let them know you have an active buyer.
Right.
And you want them to call us now. I always put call me now, as this is the right time to sell.
So Kathy is right, echoing the sense of urgency, how important that is, and with her her messaging to her sphere of influence, her messaging to the people that she talks to, the I have a buyer messaging, basically not just on a postcard, but it's everywhere. So that's where you're a walking billboard for your business, and you always, it's what is it every seller needs? It's a buyer for their property.
And
So
every postcard asks, if you're not ready to sell now, maybe you know somebody that you can refer me to that is ready to sell now. Always ask that too, and on any flyer, and whenever I'm talking to any groups or anybody else, I always ask them, do they know of anybody else? Do
Right.
you know, that might want to sell? Always be fishing for that referral.
right, great. So asking for the
Planting that
business.
seed.
Right, planting the seed and asking for the business. Great. Tammy also had a new listing last week for $670,000, full price contract within 2 hours after it hit the MLS, and that listing came from her sphere of influence. And there's also, Tammy had a new buyer last week from her sphere of influence, and that is a renter, and they're looking when their lease is up. Venus, looks like you also put a buyer under contract and they're out of their option period. And that came from a prospecting tip for the Tom Ferry event. So thank you, Venus. What was that tip?
The prospecting tip from the Tom Ferry event.
Right.
Oh, it may have been reaching out to my sphere of influence. There's scripts within the Tom Ferry slides that I've been using.
Okay.
And there are text scripts that
Okay.
have
Great.
been talked about.
So that's great, great feedback from Venus. We appreciate that. So that's the Tom Ferry event she went to a couple weeks ago mentioned texting your sphere of influence. And what was the call to action on that text, or what was the?
I think it was something to the effect of, now is a great time to buy, interest rates are low, have you been thinking about purchasing, or if you move, where would you move to?
Great. So this goes back to a lot of the Mike Ferry scripts, basically, and it's Tom Ferry, but it's in a little bit softer approach through a text message to your sphere of influence, which is, are you thinking about buying? Interest rates are low. Now is a great time. So she's creating that sense of urgency. And then, so interest rates are low. Now's a great time. And then what was the?
If you were going to move, or if you're thinking about moving, where would you move to?
If you were thinking about moving, where would you go next?
Right.
We've heard that before, right? Maybe from his dad, Mike Ferry.
Yeah.
So, great. Those are timeless scripts. That's where the fundamentals of this business, right? The fundamentals of this business never change. So make sure, if you understand the fundamentals, it's like brushing your teeth, unscrewing that toothpaste and putting the toothpaste on your toothbrush. But if you don't know those fundamentals, and what Venus just said and nailed it, that's the same Mike Ferry script we've had for 30 years.
Back to the basics.
Right. So, but it's how it's delivered, and is it being delivered, and are you doing it consistently? So great job. Kudos to you, Venus. And Venus, she got that from taking her time and doing some more training and going to the Tom Ferry event. So good job. Reginald closed the listing last week, presented at a NACA meeting, which is the nonprofit partner to help homeowners. 30 people were in attendance and had direct contact with 3 participants. So good job. Amanda, she completed her required courses to renew her license, picked up a new investor buyer from one of her current investors. So another buyer from her sphere of influence. Corey picked up a buyer referral from his sphere of influence. Jill, working 2 for sale by owners using the Waller Group sale by owner open house program. Sarah, her new listing went under contract, had multiple offers, and it sold for 5% over list price. Good job, Sarah. That helps our numbers in the brokerage for our list to sales price ratio. So appreciate that. That's something that, as you all are increasing your skill set as a brokerage, we'll see our list to sales price ratio increase. And when we're at a 99%, 100%, those will be very, very powerful stats for you guys to use on your listing appointments. So keep that in mind. So I want to emphasize the KDNA tip sheets, the revisions on these. So I know I'm skipping around today, and I want you guys to speak up at any time. But on the hours contacting, make sure you have a clear understanding of your value proposition. Wes and Venus both have done a great job of this, and so keep that up. What Mike Ferry says is, generally agents that don't prospect, they don't know how to make great presentations. So a great presentation it's basically your elevator pitch. A great presentation is different with every single person you talk to. So it's knowing, how do you create value for this person? If they're renting in a high rise, then you're going to tell them something different that creates value for them versus a seller that's in Castle Hills. So make sure that you know with that, that 30 seconds or that quick conversation that you're having with them, whether it's a text message, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a face-to-face conversation, whether it's running into them at the grocery store, but what is it that you are going to present in a very short amount of time that makes an impact and creates value?
And that takes listening skills.
Exactly.
Don't be so focused on what your presentation always is going to be. Listen to what the other person has to tell you, and then adapt your presentation within seconds to what they just told you. Because if you start going off on a presentation that has nothing to do with what they want, they're going to think you're like out in left field.
Right.
So don't be so married to your script. Listen. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Right. So listening skills, social media touches. These are whether it's reposting in different news articles, but something that creates engagement and that's local to your audience. And then one of the foolproof way to create engagements that are meaningful is make them feel good. So whether it's a compliment, whether it is a something that makes them feel good, you can never go wrong.
Find something in common with them.
Right. Kathy always emphasizes this: find something in common with them. So it's a great point. Preferred vendor referrals. Some other things as far as relative news are vendor referrals for household maintenance, repairs, etc. in their neighborhood. Be sure you're a member of Neighbor Next Door or nextdoor.com. That is a fantastic website, and I've listened to an hour-long presentation on it last week. It's just amazing what they've done in the last year. And I saw just in the last 10 days in my own next door, people asking for 2 different people, neighbors asking for realtor referrals. This is very powerful, especially this time of the year. Make sure that you're active and you're subscribing to those, subscribing to the information there. Birthdays, anniversaries, life changes, personal details in your sphere of influence. We all know that. We also put expectations. You know, what is a top producer? Top producer, 100 plus transactions a year. Intermediate agents, 12 to 99 units per year. New agents, 0 to 12. So this could also be, depending on your top producer income, is $1 million plus a year is what I've always considered. It's different with different people and different brokerages, but it's all relative, right? Okay, so we also put expectations as far as how to generate your contacts. What is the importance order when you're generating contacts, whether it is Facebook or whether it's someone in your sphere of influence? But number 1, relevance. Is this relevant to the person you're talking to? Number 2, the strength of the relationship. How strong is that relationship? Number 3, occasionally humor, and number 4, emotional appeal. So all great marketing campaigns have emotional appeal. So how appealing are you emotionally when you're with your sphere of influence? KDNA tip sheet number 4, flyers, postcards distributed. 3 things that are important. You've heard me say this. Number 1, credibility. So Wes does a great job with his showing. You can't argue with statistics. If it says highest sale in the neighborhood, price per square foot, or if you find an area that shows that you're creating results and that it's credible so they see it, then that's the number 1 challenge agents have, is credibility. So make sure that your direct mail piece, your marketing piece, is creating that credibility. And then number 2, results. Are you showing results? So if you've sold something or if you've listed something, that's a pretty good indication of results. And then number 3, a call to action. What is that call to action? So we put more tips in, and I've refined the KDNA tip sheet number 4 on the marketing budget, your allocations for direct mail. If you're spending $500 or more a month on marketing, I want to talk to you because I don't want you wasting your money on certain things that don't work. And at the same time, it's personal depending on your geofarm and on your sphere of influence. And there's a lot of things that we don't talk about in the brokerage, that if you're spending more than $500 a month, that I could help you with, but I've got to know what you're doing. Your Hyperion Home, homepartners.com. That's a fantastic program. That's the old Hyperion Homes they've renamed, but make sure that you're homepartners.com. Yeah. And then do you have a template letter for drive-bys or door knocks in your geofarm? So everyone should have just a letter that they keep in their car. If they see a property that looks vacant, or maybe it's an old expired, or that they can use that template letter and maybe make a personal note on it. But nothing is better than a personal note. So keep in mind, just a personal note at that property is just as good as almost everything if you have a buyer, right? One GeoFarm average expectations, one response for every 1,000 pieces distributed. Wes is a great example of that last week, 3,250 pieces distributed and had 3 responses. So 1.5 responses for every 1,000 pieces distributed during spring and summer months. So here we're right on the cusp of spring. So your results are going to be better during the peak months on your marketing pieces. Your GeoFarm just listed just sold expectations. So make sure you're familiar with what those expectations are. KDNA number 5, voice-to-voice contacts. I'm out of time. So anyway, make sure you go through all the KDNA tip sheets because they were all updated just 2 weeks ago. And did I forget anything? Brian, you have an announcement, new video you guys have.
Just real quick. Hey guys, happy Monday. Just wanted to touch on a couple quick things. One, like Wes and Venus were saying, I mean, Facebook, social marketing, Logan was talking about touching on that. On today's email, I'm going to send out a link to a video. Actually, Wes pointed out a great idea, and it's just a video, just 2 minutes about the mortgage process. And so if someone is interested in something like that, well, what's a mortgage process like? It's a quick hit, 2 minutes. And then number 2, I actually have a flyer on the Hyperion Homes Home Partner of America. I'll attach that on the email as well if you just want to take a look. So great. If you have any questions.
So Facebook is a great way to engage with people that are thinking about moving. You know, 60% of the moves take place during the spring and the summer months. So this is when it's going to be on people's minds. More of their friends are thinking about moving. So make sure that you're spending your time wisely and you're getting this a lot. Your Facebook exposure is speaking to people that are thinking about moving. So that's applicable to a lot of people. And if you have something that is viral that creates engagement, videos are fantastic. And he gave me kind of a preview on this video, then you could repost that and share that. Thank you for your time today. And I will see you next week. Have a productive, fantastic week. Thank you.